We have a variety of NHL news updates today, including some more roster cuts from NHL training camps, including some guys on PTOs. We have another longtime NHL player announcing his retirement, plus we have some more NHL trade rumors, this time involving the Edmonton Oilers, Buffalo Sabres, and Columbus Blue Jackets. We'll get into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of news updates here today involving several teams from around the NHL. As we know, NHL training camps are well underway and many roster cuts have already been made. Many players going through the waiver wire system as well. And there's been some more roster cuts announced, so I wanted to get into some of the more interesting ones, especially with a couple of younger players that failed to crack the NHL rosters here yet again, including Eeli Tolvanen of the Nashville Predators. He has been cut from the NHL roster and assigned to the American Hockey League. Of course, he came in with a lot of attention, certainly had quite a season leading up to him signing with the Predators and coming over to play, but really ever since then he's kind of stalled in his progress, and he has failed so far to find himself getting regular NHL time, because when he has gotten it, he has not been able to seize the opportunity. So once again, Eeli Tolvanen will be starting the year in the American Hockey League for the Predators, and we'll see here, but obviously they have a very deep forward group. It's not making it any easier on him. I would not be surprised to see the Predators maybe move out a player on the forward group later into the season, depending on how everything goes. It might open up a spot for him if he's able to play strongly at the AHL level. The Tampa Bay Lightning have also assigned several players, including former first-round selection Cal Foote, and of course his brother Nolan Foote as well has been sent back to his junior club. Nolan Foote really doesn't come as a big surprise, and to an extent Cal Foote doesn't really either. Obviously the Lightning have a pretty deep blue line, but obviously he's also a really strong prospect, and I'd like to see him get some more NHL time in the near future. I would think that he was getting to the point where he should be just about ready for some NHL action. We'll see if he can get into some games later into the season. Of course, you never know how things are going to go when it comes to injuries and whatnot, but Cal Foote once again will be starting the year in the AHL for the Lightning. Now, we also had some players in training camps on PTOs that have been released, including Scotty Upshall, who was in camp with the Dallas Stars. Of course, he was fighting an uphill battle from day one, because they do have a pretty deep forward group, a lot of contracts there that were already committed to, but he did seem to have a pretty decent camp. I guess we'll see if any other NHL clubs want to give him a shot, because he didn't do too bad in camp, but unfortunately was not able to crack the roster there. And Landon Ferraro, who was in camp with his hometown Vancouver Canucks, as well, has been released from his professional tryout. Of course, Landon never really found a lot of NHL success, mostly played in the American Hockey League. Of course, his dad, Ray Ferraro, TSN commentator and longtime NHL superstar, has not found the success that his father had at the NHL level, but did have an opportunity to go play with their hometown Canucks, but unfortunately did not crack the roster. Now, longtime defenseman Eric Gryba, who was also released from his professional tryout with the Flames just a few days ago, has announced he's officially retiring from professional hockey. Of course, Eric Gryba didn't have a long, illustrious career, but he did have a decent showing, especially during his early days with the Senators. He came up through the AHL, put in his time in the minors, worked his way up, was a pretty decent blue liner for Ottawa for about 2 or 3 years before getting traded to the Oilers. Had a couple of decent seasons with the Oilers before bouncing around a bit, and now he's hanging it up. But of course, Eric Gryba has already ventured into some other businesses that he's got on the go on the side, and so obviously he has some other passions that he's already pursuing, which is great to see. But another NHLer calling it quits here after a failed professional tryout. Now, jumping into some of today's NHL trade rumors, a player that's been talked about a lot through the offseason was defenseman for the Sabres, Rasmus Ristolainen, and his name is popping up again within the rumor mill now. Of course, right now, the Buffalo Sabres likely are not in a position to go ahead and make a move, especially on the blue line with defenseman Brandon Montour out injured, but depending on the extent of that injury and when he might come back, would not be surprising to see them possibly make a move. There apparently is a lot of interest in Ristolainen, especially in a team like the Winnipeg Jets, who are desperately looking for help on the blue line after everything that blue line's gone through during the course of the offseason. And now, of course, with Dustin Byfuglien, potentially not coming back, or having a big question mark in his role with the team moving forward. So of course there is rumors persisting that the Jets are interested in Ristolainen and that talks are ongoing. It's also been mentioned that the Anaheim Ducks are also pursuing and interested in Sabres defensemen as well. Of course, they did have a deal lined up for Justin Falk with the Carolina Hurricanes, and that fell through because of Justin Falk's no trade trade clause and the lack of an extension being worked out between Falk and the Anaheim Ducks. But the Ducks and the Jets are certainly two teams that are on the hunt for right shot defensemen. Ristolainen and Falk are two of the top names out there, so it should not be surprising to see those teams being linked within the NHL trade rumor mill. For sure, makes sense for both of those teams to be trying to make acquisitions to bolster those blue lines, and the Sabres are in a position now where they likely in the near future could look to move Ristolainen. I mean, it was made publicly known that he did request a trade, but at the same time right now it's kind of putting on a brave face and saying he's happy to stay in Buffalo, which is really what you expect him to say. But I still think he would welcome a trade if they're able to facilitate one. Now, of course, it's not quite clear what kind of trade would be involved with Winnipeg if they're going after a top defenseman. There's been a lot of talk about Patrick Laine and Kyle Connor being unsigned, and of course with the Buffalo situation being unpredictable, they could end up with a predicament of having a lot of extra cap space that they didn't plan on, but at the same time they're also going to be short-staffed on having Buffalo in the lineup. So there's been a lot of rumors that maybe they would move Laine for a top defenseman, but I'm not really sure they would prefer to do that. And if they're going to trade Patrick Laine, no offense to Ristolainen, but I think they'd be going after a higher quality D-man in a much bigger package. Of course, that could involve multiple first-round picks or other prospects involved as well. I'm not really sure, like I said, though, that the Jets really want to go down that road. There hasn't been a lot of talk about that, but at the same time, we haven't really had any updates on progress being made on the Laine front on the contract either, and there's been so much drama. You just never know, I guess, but those two teams continue to be linked. Of course, they've made deals in the past, and I guess we'll see what goes down here coming up soon. Other teams and players mentioned in the rumor mill right now is the Edmonton Oilers, who find themselves having some younger defensemen who appear ready to make the jump to be full-time NHLers, including guys like Evan Bouchard and Ethan Bear. And now there's a lot of talk that Matt Benning could be a trade chip for them to acquire another depth center iceman, preferably somebody who could play in that number 3 spot. And even though they signed center iceman Riley Sheahan earlier this offseason as a depth center iceman for their bottom 6, many feel he's better suited for that number 4 spot, and the Oilers would likely want to move a defenseman to try to acquire a stronger, more offensive number 3 center. So I certainly would not be surprised to see the Oilers make some moves. Of course, they do have some other decisions to make on their forward group as well. It'd be interesting to see who sticks around after camp and who goes to the minors or back to junior or whatever. They do have a lot of younger players that are still in camp fighting for spots, especially on the wing. So we'll see what happens, but Matt Benning very well could be a trade chip here for the Oilers, as some of the younger defensemen appear to have progressed quite nicely and appear ready for more NHL action. And lastly here, the Columbus Blue Jackets very well might look to move Sonny Milano here sometime before the end of training camp. If he's going to be sent down to the minors, he's going to require waivers, and they feel that he'd be likely to be claimed by another team. They'd end up losing it for nothing. Of course, he's a former 2014 first-round selection. Hasn't really been able to find consistency during his brief amount of NHL action, but he's been an extremely solid player at the American Hockey League level. Of course, Sonny Milano has not found the most consistency at the NHL level, putting up 24 points in 70 games, but during his time at the Cleveland Monsters in the American Hockey League, he's done phenomenally well and has put up a lot of points down there. So he's a solid American Hockey League player for sure, but there's still the potential to be an NHL player in the future. Of course, Sonny Milano also ran into some off-ice issues earlier this offseason, which very well might taint his reputation a little bit, but I guess we will see. But he's still a fairly young player, 23 years old. We'll probably wouldn't have to give up a whole lot to acquire him from Columbus, but I would imagine that they're likely going to want to try to trade him before they put him on waivers, just to see if they can get something in return, as they do feel that he likely would be claimed. Another team might take him on as a project to see what they can do with him, if they can get him into their lineup and fulfill any of that potential that he was drafted with back 5 years ago. Then they very well find themselves getting a steal off the waiver wire. But I guess we will see. But the Columbus Blue Jackets are another team to watch when it comes to trades leading into the beginning of the NHL season. So let us know your latest updates for today. Of course, as always, I want to know your thoughts and opinions on everything discussed in today's video. So let me know what you think down in the comments, and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications as well so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.